Did you know that the minimum support price is offered for 23 crops, but effectively it operates only for wheat and rice? And did you know that 80% of India's agriculture, including new age segments like poultry, etc., are not covered by MSP? Hello and welcome to another edition of Capital Calculus. I am your host, Anil Padmanabhan. 3 years after they laid siege to the city of Delhi, the angry farmers are back, this time with a new set of demands. But given that the general election is a few weeks away, it's a clear indication that this is more about politics. But unknowingly though, especially if you go beyond the rhetorical headlines, the agitating farmers have put the spotlight on the structural fault lines in the existing agricultural policy. This policy was put in place in the 1960s in exceptional circumstances. At that time, India faced a massive food scarcity. In fact, it lived on imports. Some would say from ship to mouth. People of my vintage would recall the PL 480 scandal where the Americans famously humiliated India. All this changed with the Green Revolution. In the decades thereafter, India went from a food scarce to a food surplus country and is now one of the leading exporters of food grains. Clearly, the policy needs an update to keep up with all this change, especially the change in circumstances. The obvious question is, what and how? To answer this and more, I spoke to Ashok Gulati. He's an economist, an outspoken person, and most importantly, in my view, the last word on Indian agriculture. I began by asking Dr. Gulati his thoughts on the ongoing agitation by farmers, whether it was all about politics, given that the general election is imminent.
I would say it's a mix of political economy. Elections are there. Everybody wants to take as much as possible from the government. And remember that Punjab farmers are the richest farmers in the country. Okay, so it's the poorest farmers in Bihar. They are not agitating who get prices that are normally 20-25% below MSP. So it's Punjab farmers. But overall fact is that agriculture, especially this year, the growth rate was only 1.8% compared to 4% last year and 3.5% the year before. So it has been somewhat under stress on that front. But it's a cocktail of politics and economics, both.
Okay. If we can, you made this point that the farmers in Bihar sell at below the MSP price. So why is it that procurement only happens in these three states, basically Punjab, Haryana, and West Uttar Pradesh?
That's a legacy of the past. You have to understand how this MSP business came into being and how the procurement started off. It's in 1965. In January 1965, the Agricultural Prices Commission and Food Corporation of India were given birth because we were trying to introduce the new technology of high-yielding variety seeds there. Punjab was the most fertile land and irrigated land, so the seeds were brought in and distributed in Punjab, Haryana, Western UP primarily. The production will go up. And at that time, when production goes up at the harvest time, prices normally crash. So to ensure, and we were a ship-to-mouth economy at that time. We were so short. We were importing 10 million tons of wheat at that time, and we didn't have the foreign exchange to pay for it. So it was coming under PL 480, if you remember those days. So this system was erected to replace massive imports of wheat under PL 480 and farmers should be given an incentive so that they increase production as early as possible with the arrival of new seeds and procurement. In fact, first time in 67, 68, when the crop came and suddenly the productivity increased and FCI bought, it didn't have the storage facilities. So the primary schools of Punjab had to be closed down, and the classrooms of those primary schools became the godowns of FCI. But we are still carrying uh, those policies till day when we have become the largest exporter of rice in the world. 40% of the global exports of rice are from India, you know. So the policies which were suitable when we were massively large importers and living from ship to mouth, if you follow the same policies when you are hugely surplus or reasonably surplus, there is need to reassess, reorient, and make it what today's conditions require, particularly on sustainability issues, on nutrition issues, and definitely farmers' incomes have to go up. So if we keep that in the background and try to restructure, realign these policies, that is where the wisdom will lie. If we keep on continuing with the policies totally outdated, then of course there are massive inefficiencies in the system, economic inefficiencies, and that leads to all sorts of things that we are witnessing right now.
So interesting, because one of the demands of the farmers is that MSP should be made mandatory. So, which, going by what you just said, which means you will cement this bad legacy, rather a legacy which has outlived its utility.
That's right. And in fact, the legality of this doesn't affect actually Punjab farmers, because Punjab farmers, in fact, in Punjab, the procurement of paddy many years is more than the production of paddy in Punjab. Okay, so that means paddy is coming from other states. And even wheat, 80% of their wheat is sold to the FCI. So for them, it is an open-ended procurement. No FCI has ever said that we will not procure. So whole thing, this legality is binding the country in the other parts. Bihar, for example, if the price is low because there is production and market has to clear, then the entire thing will have to be bought by the government. Now, question is, government will buy it from Punjab, it will buy it from Haryana, it will buy it from Telangana, it will buy it from where and how much. Already our stocks of rice particularly had been way, way above the buffer stock norms, and that reflects the inefficiency in the food management system. And ultimately, it's the tax money which is not giving a good return.
Is this the reason, I mean, the logic based on which the UPA, the Congress-led UPA, rejected this idea of making it mandatory, I think in 2010?
It's not just 2010, because this report was submitted in 2006, the so-called Swaminathan Commission, National Commission on Agriculture. It was set up in 2004, 2 years they kept on. Interestingly, actually, there are two parts of this. One is the legality part, and the other is what farmers are demanding. It should be based on what is called the comprehensive cost, C2 cost, which is about 25 to 30% higher than the current cost calculations that the government is doing, A2 plus FL. So that means the MSPs of most of the crops will go up by 25-30%. So these two things were very well examined by the government at that time, Dr. Manmohan Singh and his entire team of economists, and he was an economist himself. They saw that it is impractical, we cannot do this, and it will mess up the economy. Okay, so they quietly rejected that. And I know inside story also, great regards for Dr. Swaminathan as a scientist, but on economics, You have to understand how prices are decided and what MSP's role is. There is a demand curve and there is a supply curve and there is a market clearing equilibrium price. Now, MSP is supposed to be marginally below that, so that at the time of harvest, when everybody brings the produce, markets crash at that time. So that is the time when government can give a basic floor price. But if you put the MSP price above the equilibrium price, then there is a massive distortion. You will create accumulation of stocks and demand will shrink. When the prices go up, demand will shrink. When prices are low, demand expands. That's how the markets clear. That's the basic understanding of markets. This is demand supply, simple economics of ninth grade. Now, if you goof up on that and you use price policy to augment farmers' incomes, then actually you are using a very wrong instrument to achieve an objective. I agree that you want to increase farmers' incomes. That objective is perfectly fine. But don't use price policy to achieve that. You should use income policy to achieve that so that it doesn't create distortions in the production basket and the consumption basket.
That's true, because if you go on increasing MSP, inflation will get a huge spur. So I just want
Of course.
to come to this income policy which you're referring to. You're saying delink
Mhm.
the two. So what is the
Mhm.
income policy that you have in mind?
You know, income policy, if you remember, just before elections in 2019, the first state to experiment with that was Telangana, Raitu Bandhu. So they gave it on per hectare basis, that we will give you 12,000 rupees per hectare basis, And then after that, Odisha government, they announced Kalia scheme. And they said we will give it to the farmers as well as agricultural labor that is working on. It's always difficult to lock in who is agricultural labor and who is a farmer and who is a tenant, and there is a complexity there. But all said and done, after these two states had done it, and others were going ahead, at that time, at the central level, uh, central government came up with PM Kisan. It's 6,000 rupees per household, not on acre basis. So in that way, actually, it is more equitable because to the small farmers, 6,000 means something, whereas to the farmers of Punjab, 6,000 is not even peanuts. So question is, you can tinker it with it and give it somewhat per hectare basis, and you can as the farmer becomes bigger and bigger, you can say okay, 80% of what you give to the smallholder, and but per hectare basis is always a better method to do some justice. That doesn't distort the markets, right? China gives $22 billion on new basis, and they say we are actually giving input support, to the farmers. And they can buy with that whether they want to buy seeds or fertilizers, pesticides, farm machinery, whatever they want to do. This is the money given to them. And then the prices of all the commodities are market determined. Okay. Whereas what we are doing, we are highly, highly subsidizing urea, which is leading to a massive misuse of urea or inefficient use of urea and even diversion of urea out of agriculture. That itself is a mega job to be done. 1,88,000 crores is not giving what return it should give to the government by spending that much money because of this inefficient tool of policy that they are using. So we need to understand the price policy package and the income policy package. I am with farmers if they are talking about increase our incomes. And the least distortionary method is direct income support on per hectare basis.
Dr. Gulati is making a very interesting point here. Every year, crores of rupees are poured into the food grain economy in the form of subsidies, designed to protect farmer incomes and consumer interests by controlling output prices. In this, electorally, the cohort of consumers outweigh the farmers. Given this backdrop, does it then make more sense to improve farm incomes through investments in the farm economy, like say Madhya Pradesh has done, which has turned the state's agriculture in just 2 decades of massive investments in irrigation and other agri-infrastructure?
Of course, investment is always better than direct income support. There's no doubt about that. Investment in agriculture R&D gives you 5 to 10 times return. If you invest $1 billion in agri R&D, the result will be 5 to 10 times more. You invest in irrigation, you invest in rural roads. Okay, these are the basics in which government should initiate. Okay, but if still, because that will increase the productivity of the farmers, and that is the more sustainable, and that is enabling environment. But that doesn't come overnight. It will take time. Okay, irrigation, you can't make irrigation in Maharashtra. Irrigation is only 18% of the area, whereas Punjab, that is 99% irrigated. So if you want to take 18% irrigation in Maharashtra to 50%, it's going to cost you hell. Okay, and that will take years. So they want quick fix. Right now, farmers want something. Oh, otherwise we will not go back. So what do? The easiest way is give them income.
So you are suggesting, implicitly, that's like in the 60s, the crisis on food created the wherewithal to, the high yielding variety, the big boom in agriculture. In today's crisis of surplus and all these structural fault lines coming forth, that it's time to re-examine agriculture in a larger context of all that you said, that, you withdraw subsidies, you do, it's a revisit the entire agriculture system.
I'm not saying withdraw subsidies. I'm not saying withdraw. I'm saying reorient subsidies, give it back. First condition is farmer should not be worse off than what he is today. Okay, otherwise nothing will move. But then you have to reward him for better farming practices, for better choice of commodities, so that the distortions in the economy which are leading to inefficiency are reduced, because those gains of saving on inefficiency should be given back to the farmer. So it's not withdrawal, it is reorientation, it is repurposing, so that you will get a bigger bang for the buck you are spending, and farmers will get a better deal. And that requires some little understanding of what is happening, and it requires patience, and it requires political communication to the farmers and perseverance on that. Because you have to communicate to the farmers. Otherwise, the opposition will, all the subsidies are abolished, say they are giving all to the big business, blah, blah, blah. That's what our politics is.
You heard Dr. Gulati. That was a very refreshingly alt view on the current crisis facing the country. Dr. Gulati didn't paint the farmers as villains. Instead, he's identified the problem, one of increasing farm incomes in very changed circumstances. Now, the priorities are sustainability and nutrition. Previously, it was all about food security. Now, the task is to balance this trade-off between farmers and consumers. One suggestion Dr. Gulati has is to improve investments in farming and thereby create a better ecosystem to improve farm incomes in the country. And most importantly, he stresses the need for communication, which, given that a general election is right on us, is something that is not conceivable. But after the general election, it could well be the national priority food for thought. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Strat News Global on YouTube. Hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any updates. And please do share your thoughts, ideas and suggestions with us. I'm available on Twitter at Capital Calculus. I'll be back next week with another episode. Till then, stay safe.